2020, an infamous vintage for Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon. I mean, infamous for the entire North Coast and infamous for 90% of the West Coast outside of Santa Barbara County, which emerged unscathed. But other than that, we had, there was those fires, you heard about them. Now, a lot of folks in 2020 did not make wine, and with good reason, right? Especially when you're charging like $300 a bottle. There's no way in hell you should put together a wine from 2020 in the bottle that there could be any issue with at all, any remote issue. And the deal is we've been really super finicky. How many 2020s have we bought? Like 10, We've been super picky with the wines. But the ones that do make the cut here, and you know us, we're like really horrible that way. We're super picky. The ones that do make the cut, they are super groovy. And in this case, bam, we have a super groovy 2020 today, and the story's only gonna get better and better as we tell it. So this is from Atlas Peak. A lot of you guys may recognize the Atlas Peak label in some semblance or another. In the 1980s, the Antinori family of Tuscany, the Antinori of Tignanello and Solaia fame, pioneered the Atlas Peak area. This is an area, the southeastern side of Napa in the mountains. So this was a brand new mountain appellation forged by the Antinoris, primarily in the mid to late 80s. In 1992, I think it received its own AVA. Really fast, that happened really fast. I can't believe it got an AVA so fast. And then what happened is, what we've seen over the last 20 years is the wines from Atlas Peak growing into their AVA, right? Like with Howell Mountain, the wines from Howell Mountain were special straight away. Peppery, minerally distinctive, boom, Howell Mountain wine, you know it. Spring Mountain, cinnamon, baking spice, Spring Mountain wine, boom, you know it. Atlas Peak got its AVA, and then it's like, well, what's Atlas Peak? And the wines kind of grew into their special recognition now as one of the top AVAs in the valley. But we're gonna take a little left turn there, because even though this is Atlas Peak Winery, this is not all Atlas Peak fruit in this wine. I think that brings us back around to 2020. Sourcing was critical. So the Atlas Peak Winery and winemaker Derek Irwin took it upon themselves to do some serious sourcing and be very particular, because they did want to put something out. A lot of people did want to make wine in 2020. So what do? You get diligent. You start digging. You have your sources. You do lots of work. You're sending stuff out to be assessed for smoke taint. You're doing all these sorts of things, and in the end, you put together a wine that you probably worked 10 times as hard to produce, and it's a fraction of the price. And that's the instance that we have here. This is a pretty special wine from Atlas Peak. 2020 Cabernet Sauvignon Napa Valley. From fruit all the way up and down the valley, Irwin's got a ton of contacts. He's like a secret weapon consulting winemaker that you don't hear about, because he doesn't really reach out to the Harlans and the Screaming Eagles and stuff. He's not that guy. He's more like stealth, right? He's more stealth mode consultant winemaker, but he's worked for a ton of wineries up in the valley, including he actually works at Geyser Peak. He's like one of the main guys at Geyser Peak, and a lot of people don't know this. That's not something you advertise, but dude has serious chops, and you can taste in this wine. Beautiful color here. I'm really impressed by the saturated kind of darker, richer color here. It was a warm year. It wasn't gonna be a vintage of the century before, but if you were up in the mountains, you had a much better shot at making premium wine. These cooler sites were already ahead of the game. So the stuff from Howell Mountain, the stuff from Spring Mountain, Mount Veeder, Atlas Peak was already going to be ahead of anything else produced in the valley floor because of the blazing heat that was hitting the North Coast even prior to the fires breaking out. So if you were in a great terroir and you picked a lot of the fruit or worked with a lot of fruit that was picked before the glass fire, 17th I think it was, then you had the opportunity to make some really special wines, and that's what this is. We were frankly super impressed. And here's the key. There's no smoke taint in this wine. And the funny thing is, smoke taint, what they learned, particularly in 2020, was that smoke taint isn't just about oh, it smells like an ashtray, which it is. If you're really bad, if you bottled something that shouldn't even remotely be bottled, then yeah, it'll have that ashtray, old smoky type feel and aroma and character to it straight away. The other smoke taint is the stuff that impacts the structural aspect of the wine, i.e. the smoke taint really accentuates drying tannin. So one of the secret things that we noticed when we were tasting 2020s is the wines that did have smoke taint, that didn't taste smoky, were in fact really brutally tannic, like really dryingly tannic. And this wine has zero of that. The sourcing here has been impeccable. There's gonna be a lot of Atlas Peak in this. They're there, right? But the work that Irwin did up and down the valley to source the proper stuff to make an appropriate blend from 2020 that is juicy, rich, dark, saturated, adorable, a joy to drink, but charging a really fair price. I mean, kudos, right? But I'm like drinking this wine right now. This is this is really juicy, yummy stuff. We take it a step further. In this instance, because, okay, get this, the whole reverse thing. Because it is a 2020, accordingly, a lot of customers were skittish. You know, they were scared. They didn't jump in. And this is where we at WineX really get to use our palates and really separate out certain wines that are special, but maybe didn't catch a fair break. And I would say what happened is this wine didn't catch a fair break. But at the same time, we're like, yeah, we want a deal. So we cut a hell of a deal. This is $50 Napa Valley Cabernet, diligently sourced, super hard work on this wine, and we're selling for 25 bucks. I mean, bam. Like, this is like real deal Napa Cab at a crazy, crazy price because of the multiple unfortunate circumstances which surrounded the particular harvest of this pretty darn remarkable wine, especially for 25 bucks. So kudos to the Atlas Peak team. They put together something really special, and you can't beat the price.